So Fox News Smurf reporter Peter Doocy tried to do a gotcha yesterday with Joe Biden's press secretary, Jen Psaki. It failed so miserably that I don't know how he can respectably show his face in the press briefing room again. And to be clear, he will show his face there again. He has no shame, but he should be ashamed. And it seems like it's a trend among the modern right. They're unable to be embarrassed by their self-humiliating behavior. The issue is once again Major League Baseball, which has quickly become the top issue for Fox News. They've moved on, I guess, from Dr. Seuss, and the new game they are playing is arguing it's silly for Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game from Georgia to Colorado because Colorado has the same voting laws that they are protesting in Georgia. Now, let me be crystal clear. If it were true that Colorado had the same voter laws as Georgia, it would look pretty stupid for Major League Baseball to say we're protesting the Georgia voting law by moving the game to a state with the exact same law. That would be really stupid. There's no doubt. It's not the case, though. And Jen Psaki knows it. And this goes really poorly for Steve Doocy. Take a look.
Is the White House concerned that Major League Baseball is moving their All-Star game to Colorado, where voting regulations are very similar to Georgia?
Well, let me just refute the first point you made. First, let me say, on Colorado, Colorado allows you to register on Election Day. Colorado has voting by mail, where they send to 100% of people in the state who are eligible applications to vote by mail. 94% of people in Colorado voted by mail in the 2020 election. And they also allow for a range of materials to provide, even if they vote on Election Day, for the limited number of people who vote on Election Day. I think it's important to remember the context here. The Georgia legislation is built on a lie. There was no widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Georgia's top Republican election officials have acknowledged that repeatedly in interviews. And what there was, however, was record-setting turnout, especially by voters of color. So instead, what we're seeing here is for politicians who didn't like the outcome, they're not changing their policies to win more votes. They're changing the rules to exclude more voters. And we certainly see the circumstances as different. But ultimately, let me add one more thing. It's up to Major League Baseball to determine where they're holding their All-Star game.
So Jen Psaki was ready. And it's actually an even sillier comparison between Georgia and Colorado than Jen Psaki makes it out to be. It's not at all serious to consider the voting circumstances and laws in the two states. The right is saying, well, Colorado also has voter ID. They do, but Colorado's voter ID is what's called a non-strict voter ID law. It's not the obvious and outrageous voter suppression attempt that the Georgia law is. In Colorado, voters can produce a number of different types of ID, including ones without photos. If you don't have ID, you can still vote by provisional ballot. And at that point, election officials are charged with verifying eligibility. Georgia's in-person ID requirement is what's called a strict law. It must be a photo ID. If you don't have one, you can cast a provisional ballot, but you then still have to bring a photo ID within 3 days. Dramatically different circumstances. But here's the more important issue. The Georgia voter ID law at issue is for mail-in voting. Why are they even talking about the in-person voter ID when this is all about mail-in voter ID? Now, next issue. But David, hold on. Colorado and Georgia both have similar numbers of days for early in-person voting. That's true, but Colorado elections are almost done completely by mail. Early in-person voting isn't particularly necessary nor relevant in Colorado because almost everybody votes by mail. All registered voters automatically get an absentee ballot. Somewhere between 90 and 99%, depending on elections, of voters use the mail-in voting option. So yes, Colorado has roughly the same number of in-person early voting days as Georgia, but given how few people use that option, given how accessible mail-in voting is in Colorado, it's incontrovertibly easier to vote in Colorado. So in total, Colorado is widely considered a strong state for voter enfranchisement, for making it easier for people to vote. Georgia's new bill is a beacon of disenfranchisement. And then just the last thing on this, I do think it's important to understand the motivations of the recent Georgia bill, because the comparison about the rules is a fair one to make. And as we just did, the rules clearly are more favorable to enfranchisement in Colorado. But the Georgia bill came from too many Democrats voting in 2020. Joe Biden winning Georgia in 2020. Democrats unseating 2 incumbent Republican senators in Georgia in 2020. That's the motivation for Republicans. But Republicans didn't see Biden win and 2 Democrats defeat 2 incumbent Republicans in Georgia and say, let's pass a bill to make it easier for more people to vote. No, of course not. Their strategy all along was to suppress the vote. This is why Trump opposed mail-in voting. They saw they didn't suppress enough of the vote to win, and so now they're trying to suppress more of it. And we shouldn't be naive and only look at the rules and ignore the motivations. The motivation's a big part of it as well. And another complete and abject failure by Peter Doocy to catch Jen Psaki in these very flaccid gotcha question attempts. Let me know your reaction about all of it, about the laws in Georgia and Colorado, about Peter Doocy's continued attempts to make Jen Psaki look bad. Whatever your thoughts are, you can find me on Twitter at @dpacman. We're going to take a quick break, and we have so much more to discuss today. One of our sponsors is Magic Spoon breakfast cereal. Sweet and delicious like the cereals you loved as a kid, without the sugar, without the carbs. Magic Spoon tastes just like those sugary cereal brands we all loved, but it has 0 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 13 to 14 grams of protein. So it's perfect for anyone following a keto or low carb diet, or just people like me who want to avoid sugar. Magic Spoon has just relaunched the blueberry flavor, one of my favorites. It comes in cocoa, fruity, frosted peanut butter, and cinnamon. You can also get a variety pack and try them all. Magic Spoon is so confident in how delicious their cereal is, you get all your money back if you don't absolutely love it. They'll give you $5 off when you go to magicspoon.com/Pacman and use the coupon code Pacman. I've put the link underneath this video.